Thank you, everybody. Welcome to today's council meeting. In terms of, would you mind standing for the council prayer led by Councillor Dalgety?
Mighty God, members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities and the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions, and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen.
Thank you very much. I have apologies from Councillor Sharlin, Councillor Hiroa. Would somebody like to so move, please? Thank you, Councillor Rakawa and Councillor Fee seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. We have no public forum today. Conflict of interest declarations at this stage, anyone? I note that you're probably all rate payers and we're discussing rates. That is not a conflict that you can excuse yourself from. The reports for decision. Sorry, the confirmation order of business is as stated as I'm aware. I've been advised of no change. Moving on to item number 6, the reports for decision 6.1, the adoption of the annual plan, amended revenue and finance policy and rates remission policy. And I will pass in a second to the Chief Executive. We will undoubtedly pass to someone else. But could somebody move the recommendation that the report be just received at this stage? And so Councillor Buckendale, you're going to second it. Councillor Dalgety, those in favour, those against, carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I will make a statement, just that obviously we are adopting within time, so by the 30th of June, which is great. So thanks to everybody that's put their wholehearted effort into reaching this conclusion. I'll pass over to Tiffany.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll take the report as read, but I will just go through some highlights. So we all know why we're here, which is we're presenting the annual plan 2026-27 for adoption, and then the setting of the consequential setting of rates for the coming financial year. The report also covers the amended revenue and financing policy and the rates remission policies, which will also hopefully be adopted today. So as we all know, the annual plan for 26-27 is year 3 of the LTP for 24 to 34, and it covers council's planned work program and associated budgets for the year. In terms of the policies, the revenue and financing policy is a policy that council is legally required to have. It outlines how council will fund different activities, and as we know, the changes were fairly minor for this policy. Council may choose to have a rates remission policy, and we did various amendments to this policy, with the largest amendment being the introduction of a remissions for water rates. For the consultation process, these were all consulted on concurrently, and consultation period stretched from the 16th of March to the 17th of April. We had 48 submissions in total, and council held a hearing of submissions on the 6th of May. Deliberations then took place on the 21st of May, and following deliberations, officers have done some updates to the annual plan. And I will hand over to Leanne.
Just before you hand over, so those submissions and the responses to submissions are available on our websites?
Yes.
And they are aggregated to a certain extent?
They are, and we will also be circulating those to submitters following the adoption of the annual plan.
Thank you. Any questions around that process before it passes further? And I just stress that the adoption of the annual plan, this process is a culmination of a series of meetings and workshops that have gone on with council and in terms of finance. Pass back to you.
Cool. So if I just, I've got a one pager just so that you can see the visuals of what we've changed. The actual individual rates I'll talk about when we do the rates resolution, and I'll talk about the community boards and those sort of questions at that point. When we met in May. One of the questions, council asked of officers, was there any other areas we could look at to find savings? And we genuinely looked. The only thing that, Warren and I could come up with was playing with the cost of interest, because our starting point of debt is going to be a little bit lower than, initially thought. However, right now, the interest rates are moving again, and so we have left the cost of interest in the, annual plan as we'd set it, because we think that is financially prudent to do that and not undercook it, just to give a better number. Outside of that, so we're sitting at 6.4 still, which is significantly down on what the LTP year 3 had originally projected. The other thing we reviewed, as we had agreed, was to look at the capital budget. It is still very high, but the work is expected to be done. There has been changes. We've added in the 5 million for Erewhon. We know that Erewhon high probability won't spend 5 million next year, but we needed the figure in there so they could go to tender, and so that's quite important. We added in the increase for the Martin swimming pool that hadn't been in our annual plan. We made a change to the Martin water strategy based on council's decision, knowing what they were paying per Calico line, but also knowing there was still some, I'm going to call it additional pipes that hadn't been costed, that's in there as well. We changed the phasing of the Taihape Town Hall to recognise how we thought that's going to be, talking to the project manager, and we finished at 52.52 million. They are the only changes we've made to our annual plan.
I'll just stress to people online, these aren't new additional charges, additional cap expense.
No, it's just
They've
a
been through
change.
council decision-making processes, etc.
And so a question that was raised this morning by the mayor was that we'd increased the debt compared to the annual plan, to the LTP. That's not correct. The debt hasn't increased, but the capital spend looks higher for year 3 for the annual plan compared to the LTP, which is reflecting that we've changed, done that phasing differently. The overall spend hasn't changed significantly, and the cost of debt has not changed significantly, or the total debt.
Are you happy to take questions around the annual plan?
Yep.
While you're thinking, I'll open this up. Question, if I look through the annual plan, the rates charged for the community boards, Taihape and Ratana, have dropped. Rates for Ratana were about $177 a household, dropped to $135. The rates for the community board functions and the rates for Taihape Community Board also dropped. Can you explain the reason for that, please?
Happy to. If you recall, in the very early part of the workshops, I explained that we had reallocated overheads based on best business practice. So, for instance, people and culture, their costs are charged against the number of people. IT costs are charged against devices, and on it goes. That hadn't been done that way when I inherited our council allocations, and that did make changes, and we talked about that at the time. There were some swings and roundabouts, and the community boards was one where they were wearing overheads that was hard to justify based on the way we allocate overheads.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Leanne, just the Erewhon one, I recall the paper. It's a loan fund, correct? So it's self-funded operation. So I think it's just important to note that whilst it is a borrowing, it is a funded borrowing to repay that debt back.
Correct.
Which would be reflected further on in our budgets at later stages.
Once we know, once they've done their tender and they know what they're doing, we will rephase both the debt
Correct.
and the repayments, cost of interest and all of those things.
Yeah.
And we'll start doing that as soon as we know.
So
where they-
a user-pays operation.
Correct,
Yeah.
and so you'll see that in the LTP very clearly.
Yeah.
And while it is a user pays, it does still come under our collection of rates. So it does still impact on our total rate collection.
Thank you.
And it's one that doesn't transfer to the water entity.
Correct.
This isn't so much a question, it's it's an update which concerns me. And if I look at roading in 24-25, we resurfaced 4% of our network. When I first came onto council, we were resurfacing 12 to 13% of our network per annum. Our target under this annual plan is to resurface 6%. Message I'm giving here is that even at 6%, our roads will continue to deteriorate. 6% probably is not the optimum for maintenance on our road. And the principal funder is government through the FAR rates, etc. But something that is a huge, significant percentage, sometimes 30 to 40% of our operational expense is difficult moving forward. Councillor Dalgety.
Can I just ask them what you would suggest is a reasonable target in today's scenario?
I've got officers who could better advise, but I would suspect that the optimum would be for us to be resurfacing probably around 7% to 8%.
Thank you.
Darren, do you?
Sure. NTTA, for their own, networks are proposing 9% for the state highway, so we're not at that level, so there's somewhere between 6 and 9, but, yeah, it's a case of show me the money and we can do it, but, yeah, it's the general trend of costs increasing.
And for those online, we are very significant of roading. We funded an extra nearly 3.2 million in that category that we could apply for and so on. So we'll continue to be put under stress. I also note in our targets, we have a target of to move towards 0 deaths on our roads. Unfortunately, that's probably something that we can't easily control, but probably the target of 0 deaths attributed to our roading network is more realistic in my mind. In other words, if there is a fault on our roads that has caused a death, we should be held accountable to that.
So we were at 0 for the last 2 years. We had one unfortunately this year, so our DIA target is to reduce, so we were at our 0 target, but unfortunately it's pretty difficult to sustain.
Yeah. And I can understand the reasons for the targets being there, but any further questions around the annual plan? No, right. Recommendation 2, that council consider the prudent to adopt a budget that is not a balanced budget 26-27 on the basis that it's financially prudent and achieves a sustainable balanced budget in accordance with section 100 of the Local Government Act 2002. Councillor Wilson.
Happy to move.
Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Dalgety. Any questions around this? Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Very briefly, I think, and further to what our chief executive said at the starting of today's proceedings, I think it's important to acknowledge that the number of recommendations that we have here in front of us have been born out of a considerable amount of work that not only the staff have been done, but that we have been involved in as councillors through various different workshops to get to this point. So it may look like running a not balanced is not a good thing. The explanations to us as councillors and as governors have been very clear for the reasons why. And I think this recommendation states it quite clearly as it's prudent to do so. So I am in support, obviously.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Recommendation 3, this gives the chief Second, the authority to make minor editorial and formatting changes. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Buckley, Councillor Okawa seconding.
Your worship, this is the formal adoption of the annual plan.
Sorry.
This is the formal adoption of the annual plan.
Yeah, you're right. Recommendation 3, that council adopts the annual plan 26-27 and gives the chief executive authority to make minor editorial formatting changes to the document prior to publication. It's formal adoption with the right to make amendments. Would somebody like to so move? Still councillor Buckendale, councillor Rakawa still seconding.
Yes.
Any questions? Do you wish to speak to it, councillor Buckendale?
Just to say that I'm very happy with that decision. No problem.
Any other speakers? The vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried, thank you very much. Recommendation 4, that council adopts the revenue and finance policy with or without amendment. And that council gives the chief executive authority to make those minor editorial changes. Councillor Dalgety, Chair of Finance, are you moving? Looking for a seconder to that. Thank you, councillor Field just beat seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
Being very, only minor changes. So yeah, happy to go with that recommendation.
Thank you very much. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Equally, recommendation 5, that council adopts the rates remission policy with or without, and I was presuming without, amendment that gives the chief executive again to make editorial changes. Councillor Wilson, you happy to move? Councillor Rakawa seconding. Any questions with regard to this? Again, this has been through a series of finance workshops. Councillor Wilson, do you speak to it?
I need to reiterate, been through a series of workshops, clearly explained.
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Anything before we move off 6.1, anything further from staff? 6.1, 6.2. Who am I passing to the end? Thank you.
Cool, thank you. So again, this forms part of the whole annual plan process. So you adopt the annual plan and then you set the rates for the new financial year. So these rates are what we've modelled through our workshops with you. Again, there haven't been any changes because we didn't make any changes to our operational cost. The only thing I want to draw to your attention, somewhere there's a change to one of the rates. So as part of our interim audit this year, Audit New Zealand was auditing our water charges that we invoice separately to our rates. And from a lifetime ago, there was a council resolution there's 2 areas in Taihape, Dixon's Way and Winiata, and while they are a connected water supply, because the pipeline is so narrow, they cannot get a decent amount of water. So they get charged metered water at the I think it's $2.60 for this year coming, but they don't get charged the connection. And where Audit New Zealand pulled us up is that most get charged where they have a connection, they get charged their connection and they get the first 250 cube of water free. But because these guys don't get charged a connection, they don't. And so we had to introduce, we spoke with our legal advisor because our resolutions are always checked because it's such a significant piece of work to have these rates correct. And so they recommended we note this in our rates resolution as part of our water, which is on page, it's not, have we got that? The revised copy we did last night?
It's on Bigton Camp.
Oh,
On the tin can and on the website.
oh, okay, cool. So there is an additional one, just noting that this water supply by volume is different to all the other water supplies by volume. They do not get charged connected, and they do not get the 250 metre cube, first 250 metre cube free. And it's just tidying up a resolution that went back many years that Michael Hodder went and found for me, thank him. And it's just, yeah, tidying it up.
The question for me is, does it make any material change to the annual charges that these people face?
Through the chair, no, because it was already in our model, we just didn't know it was separate to what we've been doing.
So it's just a formalisation.
It's just
rather-
formalising something that was done many years ago.
The next question from me, in terms of these rates, I note that there's a change in the capital rate. Instead of the previous being 0.000 figure,
Oh,
it's now 0.00. But I think that's acceptable to me when I look at the difference, but all of these have been checked.
these have all been checked multiple times. We have a number of checks and balances. And it was also tidying up the civil defence one because we consulted on that being capital value, but outside of the general rate. So everything balances. Hopefully you find nothing that you can come and scare us about this year. Last year was not very kind. But we think we've got it right. We're confident we've got it right. There's a number of checks we do.
Yeah, if I was materially, I've looked through them, if I was materially questioning it, I would have raised it outside of this room.
Thank you.
So I think that it is right, but it is interesting that the bullet point is that decimal points position has just changed.
Yeah, it's just as you get all the latest and greatest of our capital value is what we're constantly doing. And, you know, we could get one property revalued as we've gone through workshops to final presentation and everything. So we're trying to have the latest and greatest of all properties that we're aware of, both in SERPs and capital value.
Anything further you want to introduce?
Right.
Ed? Chair of Finance.
I just for clarity for our Hunterville urban scheme members, I just want to make sure I've got this correct. So they pay the 371.90 for the 365 cubic square meters, and then there's the $6.47 on top of that. That's page 13 and 14. Is that how that works?
Yeah, go.
Okay,
I'm sure I'll find
through the chairman, the way that works is that the council actually purchases from the scheme at that rate of the 300 and, what do you say, $347, $350.
71,
Sorry,
90.
371. They purchased that from the Hunterville rural scheme at that rate. That's their right to draw off the water for the urban. The urban people pay the $6.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is that clear enough in those orders papers? No, I was trying to establish exactly what it meant, and that wasn't what I came away with. Yeah.
Maybe we can do some comms. I would be loath to change anything in the resolutions that were written out there because they have gone through Simpson Grierson.
Sure. Okay.
And they look at everything we do and make sure it aligns. So,
So an editorial change in terms of the explanation is what you're seeking?
Yeah. You know, I was obviously very interested in that and trying to get my head around it, and that wasn't the conclusion I came away with. Yeah.
let me do some thinking. I'm
Thank
not
you.
sure how to, let me do some thinking on that one.
Councillor, you happy with the answer?
Yes, thank you.
Recommendation 1, that the Rangitikei District Council resolves under the Local Government Rating Act 2002 sets the rates listed in bullet point 2 to 2A to 2M above the 2026-27 financial year, being the period 1st of July 2026 to 30th of June 2027. Somebody like to so move? Deputy Mayor, Dave Wilson. Moving, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Buckendale seconding. You wish to speak to it?
I would say it's hardly a highlight of any year is setting rates, but it is a necessary thing that we as councils need to do to continue to deliver services to the people that we represent. It's not any number is not a great number, but it's a number that must be said. I do consider that we have been as prudent as we possibly can in our current positions to try and maintain. So I'm happy to set it at the rates indicated in the report.
Any other speakers? I'll speak to this. There's been a considerable amount of work that has gone into these rates positions to lower it from the position that we've gone from 10s down to 6.4. Under the proposed rates caps in the future, they will be charged with setting a lower rate again, which will be challenging. I'm happy to support the recommendation. Put to the vote, unless you want to write a reply to my comment.
I need to endorse your comments, your worship. It will be challenging going forward.
Put it to vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried, thank you. Recommendation 2, this is about the 4 equal instalments as set at about 0.3 above. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Dalgety moving, Councillor Wong seconding. You wish to speak to it, Councillor? Any other speakers or questions? This is worth noting within this, and it could be resolved without any change. There are people that pay all of their rates in one instalment. Do we need to list that as an option in this? Because this is resolving that they're due in 4 equal instalments. We don't discount
No, we don't.
if you pay in one hit. But this is a resolution to pay in 4 instalments. Do we need to note that the option is there to pay in one instalment?
Through the chair, I don't believe we do, because Simpson Gresham first would be my first go-to, but secondly, the first instalment that we send out is the entire rates. And people have the opportunity then to pay in full, and it is on the invoice, or they can pay in instalments.
And the other thing people do is actually pay weekly.
Yes.
So
so we
they
have
set up
weekly
automatic
rates.
payments, so to have something in there that covers every scenario is probably very difficult.
We'll be able to do that.
Okay, it's just right for me to ask.
Thank you. Yes, it is.
Put to the vote, those in favour? Those against, carried, thank you. Recommendation 3, that the Ringatika District Council resolves to apply the penalties on these unpaid rates as set out in bullet point 4, 4.1 to 4.3 inclusive. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Buckendale, Councillor Okawa. Councillor Buckendale, do you wish to speak to penalties?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions, speakers? Put it to the vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 4, that the Ringatika District Council under the Local Government Rating Act 2002 sets the water rates listed in bullet point 5, 5A to 5H above. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Dalgety moving, Councillor Okawa seconding. Councillor Dalgety, do you wish to speak to it? And it's resolved your questions earlier.
Yes, no, thank you, as outlined, it's all good.
I'll put to the vote, those in favour?
Right.
Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Recommendation 5, that the Ringatika District Council resolves that the due dates for the water rates listed in bullet point 5A, 5H, etc. above be set out in the bullet point 6, 6.1 to 6.6 tables. I think this is straightforward, but would somebody like to move? Thank you, councillor O'Fee moving, councillor Field seconding. Councillor, do you wish to speak to your motion? No, thanks. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 6. That the Rangitikei District Council resolves to apply penalties on unpaid metered or extraordinary rates for water for Hunterville, Urban Water Supply, Martin Water Supply, Ratana Water Supply, Bulls Water Supply, Mangawick Water Supply, and Tai Happy Water Supply and Hanscroll Bulls. And the water meter site listed in bullet point 5.5A to 5G is set out in bullet point 7, 7.1 to 7.2 above. It deals with. Yeah, no, it's right. It's a question in my mind about resolution. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Wong, Councillor Buckendale, Councillor Wong, you wish to speak to that?
No, just, what's required for business? Thank you.
These are all evidence supplies. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Recommendation 7, that the Rangitikei District Council resolves to apply the penalties on unpaid Hunterville rural and rural urban water supply as set out in bullet point 7.2 above. Just have a second to read things.
Penalties on that.
Yeah. Sorry, do you wish to?
No, I just, that's the
Yeah.
penalties.
Yeah. Yeah, would somebody like to so move? Councillor Dalgety moving. And, yep. Councillor Hainsworth seconding. You'll speak to it? Put it to vote. Unless there are questions. Vote those in favour. Those against. Okay, that was easy, wasn't it?
Isn't it just?
And I'd just like to say, we have been through a process very quickly. But I think this huge amount of staff work that goes in behind this, the number of meetings to get to this stage. And in reality, the issues and questions that have been raised at a number of these meetings are significant. And I'd also like to thank the submitters who have given their views that drive these directions. So thank you. We now move to the deed of support for Central District's water, 6.3. Leanne?
Yes, good morning. So I'm presenting this paper on behalf of Brent Manning, who's not around at the moment, he's on leave. I'm going to take the paper as read. It feels like quite a complex paper, but if you go back to cast your minds back to the 11th of June, when we had Mr. Dyberg and Ms. Straker here talking on this, the information was covered. It's reflecting that our operations of Central District Waters is moving at a positive rate, and we need to empower them to be able to carry on with the work that they've been doing. So it's very much, I wouldn't have thought any surprises, but I'm happy to take questions.
And you have a team here from Central District's Water if you want to bring them to the table.
Can do if you wish.
Your report.
Bring one up anyway. I'll bring Mr. Dyberg up if he wants to come in.
We welcome Chris Dryberg to the table, and I'll always get your title wrong, so you can state it.
Kura Koto, Chris Dryberg, the Executive Director for the Central District Water Establishment.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for being here at our table repeatedly with your team. So that's very useful. Who am I passing to now?
I'm happy to take questions and I'll pass them around the table if I can't answer them.
Questions? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find, there was a section in this there's slightly different interest costs staying within councils with going outside of councils. What was that? You under? I'm not sure what you referred. Yeah, sorry, I thought I had my finger on it and I apologise, but the debt that was going to be incurred if the debt was to be funded still within the councils to achieve it, as opposed to transferring it to get funding, standalone funding to the LGFA, I think, or via external funding sources. There was a slight difference in the interest cost between holding the money in-house as opposed to going on, was there?
And that will probably reflect each individual council and our average cost of debt, because a lot of it is internal
That
debt
might have been
versus
what it
moving
was.
across to the entity which will go and borrow at current rates through LGFA.
Yeah, I
No.
kind of went back over it and thought it was really sort of 6 of one, half dozen the other to a certain extent, and
Material on that.
Yeah, if I
It's
may,
on the questions, is it?
if I may,
Through your worship, we were trying to, in that, I think may have been in the Q&A document as well, trying to give an indication of if what benefit, or the fact that we were going forward with the digital program.
yes.
How much extra would it cost? And what some of the questions that came when we had the conversations yesterday at Port Whenua and also at Palmerston North was around, what does it mean for our customers? Because our customers are the same as ratepayers. If we are coming early with the digital program, what would it look like as an extra cost for the residents of bringing that digital program forward? And the estimate was $9.22 for this year and $15 for next year. We assumed an average of 5% for interest, just to have a sort of an average across different councils, nothing specific about how that 5% was developed.
Okay, well, I haven't seen that document and wasn't obviously attending those meetings, but I think that I was probably on the same page.
Thanks, if I could just to jump in. So the question was, basically, it was just in relation to that cost of debt, bringing it
Yes.
forward. The
Yes,
thing that number doesn't factor in, of course, is that if we don't do this work now, we sort of don't have a choice. We'll basically be operating with spreadsheets. And so it doesn't factor in what is the operational benefit of actually having proper fit for purpose systems in place for the organisation to operate under. Look, and I've got nothing other than my feeling on this to say this with, but I'm pretty sure that the operational cost will be more than what the debt cost will be, and actually we will see benefits in making sure that the company is set up properly from day one.
just had one other question, if I may, and thank you for that explanation, because I can understand the reasonings why this needs to happen. The timeframe to set up some of these systems is complex. And we're in advance of July 1, 27. Well, my quick math says to me, that's not a hell of a long time frame away. So are we operationally going to be able to set up in this time frame, or are we going to have some sort of a transition, or what does that look like?
So very astute question, actually, and one that has been asked around the board table as well. And that's probably one of the, and I guess that's one of the big issues or factors that we're looking at around the digital strategy itself. So basically the way that the flow has gone, you sort of start with the assumptions that were in the water service delivery plan, and that sort of hoped, really, I think it was probably more of a hope than an assumption, to be quite frank, that you could just sort of work off all of the council systems for a couple of years and then just slowly transition later. And we've had a company called Blue Beacon do this work for us, and we're about the 6th water entity they've done this work for. So they're applying the same sort of methodology. They come in and said, look, because of your context, it's just not going to be practical at all. So you change the assumptions, bring it forward. Then you're saying, well, 1 July 27 isn't that far away. And if people have been involved in big IT projects, they know how they can go. So I guess the strategy therefore is, excuse my language, but go like hell, right? Because the sooner we can make some decisions about what the systems are that you want to introduce and get that underway, the better. So this is the strategy the board has. They've understood that time is our enemy, so we've gone for that strategy. So why do we have confidence? Well, first of all, we're not going to go out a big open tender to the market and look at every possible option out there. There actually aren't that many options. But the key thing we're going to do is look to what other entities have already decided on and try and standardise around, effectively in industry standard systems. then we can say, great, so there's that system that's already been implemented, say for Waikato Water. We know that their system's already in place. All we need to do is take that, copy it basically, and do it for us. So you don't try and customize it for your own situation. You do standard installs. Rebecca, who's who leads Blue Beacon, she led the process for them to put their systems in. They had them from starting to ready to go 5 months. So that start, so you start seeing the confidence that we can build by taking various approaches. But look, it is a risk. Probably the one that's got the biggest risk is around billing. So billing is the one that we still have, we've still got more work to do before we can lock down that plan. And the plan B, well, plan A is that we can stand up a billing system and bill directly. And we do think that it's a credible option. But if in the next couple of months we start saying, well, actually it's looking a bit shaky, we'll go to plan B, and plan B is actually not a nice option, but it would be working through the councils to bill through the councils, and that requires significant work and cost that will be regretful spend.
Just one further thing, if I may, Your Worship, I think.
Carry on.
I think I'm perhaps starting to focus my thinking on a discussion I should be having with you and the shareholder committee tomorrow in Levin, is possibly where some of my questions are leading. And I don't think, to be fair, that is the purpose of the order paper that sits in front of us. So I'll park any further questions around it, because I think they are more directed to a shareholder committee level of questioning around some of these matters. So I'll
I think that'll be a good discussion. Yeah.
But just before I go to the chief executive, this is effectively in the public arena, and as a matter of respect too, because there are budgetary figures and so on being put on the table here, I went back to Chris and said, are you happy that this is not in public excluded? But as I understand it, it's already in public arena, and that is what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Chief
Richard. Just a
Executive
question, because we are the third council to see this. So have Horowhenua and Palmerston North adopted it as it is?
Yes, they have.
Right, thank you. Just think that's important for our
Yeah.
context as
And
well.
to be fair,
Going to go there.
they were, thank you. And to be fair, they were both very robust conversations. So I think everyone is taking this one in particular very seriously. So which is good, as you should.
Yeah, and one, if I may, that one comment that came through in the two conversations yesterday were around scrutiny. And while this is a significant sum of money and there is a lot of detail in this, it's subject to intense board scrutiny, and the numbers to come and the projects and the assessment of how this money will be used is still subject to rigorous scrutiny in the future from the board, and detailed conversations and budget conversations and forecast monitoring through this process. So this isn't the end of a decision about how this funding is going to be used. It's very much a start of a process that will be subject to very rigorous scrutiny in the future as well.
Can I just sort of add one point to that? Just sort of, thank you. Very good point. Then the board are, they're a very good board, and people around this table have been involved in the appointment of that board. And I think we're very lucky there. I think there's the quid pro quo here. So we're asking you to back us, to support us, to be able to go and do this stuff. I think the quid pro quo is to be very transparent about what's going on. And that's one of the things in this paper, and it'll be part of the process going forward, particularly the shareholder committee, is to continue that level of transparency and openness about what's going on, what the risks are, how we're dealing, how's it going, how much have we actually spent. So that'll be important to go through, because we are the only water entity at this stage that is having this sort of independent funding and not having to go through councils. So it is a reasonably big step, and we want to be really clear about that. So there's a lot riding on us to make sure that we don't let you down on that.
Just some questions around clarity of timeframes here. So the board is yet to appoint the permanent chief executive.
Correct.
What timeframe is there?
Imminent.
Sorry?
Imminent.
Imminent. And then, because the entity board don't appoint staff, you're making some assumptions at this stage around key critical staff appointment timeframes as part of this report. And so we just assume that they are as well.
That's harder to predict because it'll depend on who the chief executive is. And, so, you know, we've made assumptions as the establishment team that the board have been comfortable with, but ultimately we know that that is all subject to whoever the chief executive is sort of coming in and not having an allergic reaction to that. But yeah, the sort of the thinking is the chief executive could start within the next couple of months, hopefully, depending on, you know, what notice that person would have to give, etc. And there would be small number of executive roles that might follow quite reasonably fast. So as an example, you know, don't mind talking about this openly, but if Central Districts Water is in the position of having its own you know, line of credit and spending its own money and starting to have to deal with some treasury, it will need a CFO fairly fast. So that'll probably be the first one that comes along, and then others will probably follow as it makes sense. One of the things that we've talked to the board about is not to double up, you know, so we've already got quite a, you know, big establishment team that's doing some really great work. So there's no point just replicating those people and paying again. So there will have to be a sort of a close sort of integration of those two teams.
That'll be presumably a contestable type process. And this, I was going to follow this, but David essentially raised it first. You know, if I look at dates and time, it's going to be compressed, isn't it?
Yeah, it will. And I guess if anything, the budget that Jacinta's put together is probably a little bit conservative. It assumes basically, and when I mean conservative, I mean it assumes a fairly fast time frame. So, you know, what I'm saying is we've tried to be, you know, we've tried not to undershoot it. So yeah, it is. I think there's basically the assumptions that we've made is that, you know, sort of executive team on board early in the new year, the new calendar year, basically.
And I wasn't going to raise this in the annual plan position for council, but there's an overlap here, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that work in terms of time?
So through the chair, and I looked at this quite hard thinking, can I do some wriggling on the annual plan as I always do? But the reality is we don't know the time frame yet. So what will happen is if, let's say, some water people go early, then we would underspend in that particular targeted rate activity, and that underspend, that surplus, so to speak, hits our reserve. And that is part of all of the things we have to transfer across. But often we're also finding, and I know that I can speak for a number of the staff in and around this room, that while we're while we're doing work with feet in both camps, we're putting in some long hours, and so there'll be people that are incurring costs because we have to bring in support, etc. So it balances out.
I decided not to complicate the conversations
So it
around
does
the annual
balance
plan,
out.
but the
Yeah.
reality is literally the reimbursement type funds that are paid back to,
Yeah.
you know, that will be a council consideration of whether they go back to those independent units that funded it, essentially.
Incredibly complex, and that's why the teams work together very, very regularly to actually address all these things and then continue to do so.
Absolutely.
But effectively for the staff budget, that's there as a best estimate. And because otherwise in the water service delivery plan, it essentially assumed that on day 1 July 27, there would be a chief executive, and that was it. And that really knowing you need to build up the teams and get everyone operating in advance of day 1. So that's why our best assumption in terms of what that sort of fourth column or that CDW operational cost might need to be in this next financial year was really important to make sure that the team is building, and from day 1, the organization is ready to go.
Really important.
And, okay, thank you. And presumably you're going to have to operate from somewhere.
Yes.
All of that's in the mix as well. Yeah. Yeah.
That'll work.
Councillor Bear.
I'm interested to know whether anything is where costs have been greater or less given the current environment, and I'm not referring to the implementation plan so much as, well, we thought that the drain digger was going to be $35 an hour or $70 an hour, and suddenly it's $150 an hour. It's that kind of stuff. Is there anything which is unexpectedly blowing out's a bit strong, but exaggerating itself?
Through your worship, I think initially, and that's something we've talked about, when you look at those 4 blue columns in the report in terms of where the costs sit, probably council costs in terms of initial assumption of where council staff time is needing to be spent, has been more significant than was assumed. And in the water service delivery plan, we didn't specifically budget for council staff time to be included. In the establishment team itself, there were some assumptions about that team only working part-time or coming on a lot later. And because the team's been a bit more senior and they've worked more full-time for a longer period of time, those costs are higher, but not significantly higher. In terms of the ongoing costs or the water services strategy, which is effectively the equivalent to the long-term plan, at the moment that work is happening. So Warren and the team at Callum are leading that on behalf of RDC each of the council teams are inputting effectively their updated budgets for their version of the long-term plan or the water services strategy. And between now and probably October will be the time when we'll go to the board for the first time with what that revised budget looks like. Being very conscious as the budget's being set up is that comparison to what does it mean in relation to the water services delivery plan and the cost per connection. So that's absolutely when the modeling is being set up and understanding what that means in terms of cost. The capital program, though, in the water services strategy or the water service delivery plan has a significant, I think the average, Arno will know this well because he's leading the work for central districts on this side. There's big assumptions in terms of delivery in those first few years. And so as each council works through what that might look like and adjusts those to be a more deliverable number, there's going to be positives and there'll be reductions in terms of potential cost as well. But we haven't formed that level of detail just yet, but it's in the midst of it at the moment.
I guess my question was not so much about, as I say, not so much about the implementation, so much as the I mean, and this is just, yeah.
Yeah,
You're doing a great job,
Yeah.
and I love the way that you're discussing.
Councillor Wilson,
Second move option 1, your worship, of the way that report be received.
you're looking to move that the report be received. I'm looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Hainsworth seconded. Put the vote, those in favour, those against, carried. Recommendation 2, that council agrees to enter into the deed of support. Current draft discussion attached as appendix 1 for Central District's Board for the purpose of enabling CDW to obtain independent funding during the establishment period from 1st of July 2026. Somebody like to so move that? Councillor Buckendale, Councillor Wong. Councillor Buckendale, do you wish to speak to us?
No, I'm impressed with the way it's progressing and very happy with the reports from the staff.
Any further questions? Put it to vote, those in favour? Those against, carried. For those online, Councillor Wilson and myself have been intimately involved with these sorts of processes, huge number of meetings in Palmerston, etc. But staff have absolutely been involved all the way through. Recommendation 3, that council delegates the authority to agree and approve the final version of the deed of support to the mayor and an elected member. This was a discussion we had earlier. Councillor Rakawa, you wishing to move or a question?
The question first.
Question.
The elected member, any one of council, or do we nominate a member?
It'd be wise to nominate. And I would think really that should be the chair of assets, because he's been party to all of these discussions all the way through. Chair of assets, do you have an opinion?
I would agree with that, but I'd also think that my alternate on the shareholder committee would be appropriate, which is Councillor Dalgety. If that would give us a degree of cover to ensure that deed of support can be delegated authority agreed to, so those are the two.
That would mean a slight change to naming of the mayor and deputy mayor, and as an alternate. Councillor Dalby,
Councillor Dalby.
is that your thinking?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I was just going to say that. Could we add those? Now that we can add names, I'd like to add the deputy chair and councillor Dalgety as the alternate for the final version.
Councillor Dalgety, would you be happy with that? So we've got that question, is still looking for a mover.
Yes.
Councillor O'Carr, on that basis, you're prepared to move, looking
Yes.
for a seconder to that. Thank you. I'll go Councillor Field seconding. You wish to speak to it further?
No, thank you.
Any other speakers or questions? Put it to vote, those in favour, those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Recommendation 4. The council approves the execution, I love that word, of the deed of support on behalf of the council by the mayor and an elected member. Would you see value in exactly the same changes being put in place there? So it would then read the deputy mayor and an alternate councillor Dalgety, as an alternate councillor Dalgety. Would somebody like to move on that basis? Thank you. Councillor O'Fee, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Akawa seconding. You wish to speak to it?
I think that's all good, yeah.
Put it to vote, those in favour. Next one, the council agrees to enter into the LGFA, Local Government Funding Agency documentation, including the accession deeds to the LGFA, multi-user, multi-issuer deed, and note subscription agreement for Central District's water, the accession deeds, security stock certificates in relation to the LGFA guarantee, and such other documentation is required for council to support CDW joining LGFA and a secret for the multi-issue deed notes. That is quite a mouthful. Leanne, do you want to explain for those online exactly what we have just said?
Essentially, through the chair, we're asking that the council support Central District's Water being able to sign up to LGFA to be able to get the debt, the funds they need to execute what you've agreed to of the 20 million. Without being able to get this documentation, they can never do that. And alternatively, if they looked at other banks down the track, they'd be able to enter that as well.
Any questions around that? Questions first of all?
Yeah, just very quickly, ultimately, council operates as a guarantor with our other shareholding councils throughout these documents, one way or the other. So I'm happy to support this motion, but just noting, no matter which way we do, we are effectively holding the baby, no matter what our funding sources are. So it's appropriate to enable additional funding sources to make available for the board to operate under and Central District Water to operate under. But yeah, noting that we ultimately hold the debt either which way, or the guarantors to the debt.
Yeah. And it's acknowledging that at the moment, Central District Water does not have the assets that they would need.
Yes, that's
That
correct.
doesn't happen till 1 July 27.
That's correct. So happy to move this one.
Yeah, the question here from me is in terms of long-term Central District's water, the councils acting as guarantors to it is on a percentage basis.
Correct.
Would you like to explain how that fits in with the space?
Right, so through the chair again, this is a split because we recognise the three of us councils are different sizing. So Rangitikei, I thought it was 10, but I think it's now showing as 9. So 9% to Rangitikei District Council. So that is the liability we carry. Not on our books, so to speak, but because it offsets each other. So it's just about like looking through. And that's how Audit New Zealand see it, and that's how LGFA sees it. So it doesn't affect our borrow, but it recognises we have this small, but still, 20 million, it's still the better part of just under 2 that we million that we're Yeah, we're guaranteeing in the short term.
The question before we get a seconded here is, should those, that be principle be noted?
I feel like it is in the original documentation of setting up Central District Waters, and I feel to try and bring it into here on the fly. But is that water? I felt like it was mentioned in the body of the report. Yeah,
Certainly the previous papers.
Shareholders agreement as well, it's.
correct, yeah. I feel that, yeah, to try and change that at this point in time and add in here.
The reason I'm raising it is because those people sitting online now, sitting in on this council meeting, thinking, well, and they may well have been thinking, we have a third of an enormous liability. And that's not quite the case.
No, we don't.
And, you know, whether we note just in our own discussions that the question was raised as possibly the best way to do it.
Yeah, good call. So yes, no, we don't have a third of the risk. We have a much smaller share of the risk at 9%. And that is noted through multiple documents, including the shareholder agreements.
Finance team behind you have a point.
I was just going to point out that we'll be on the hook to probably disclose this in our annual accounts as a contingent liability. Disclosed.
Yeah. True.
There's a disclosure statement within an annual plan.
Annual report.
Within the annual report
Sorry.
this year will be.
Yeah.
And it would be the same as we do currently, as each council does currently for the other councils across New Zealand that we are a guarantor for.
I mean, I get that, but you can see my point for raising it, I think. Councillor O'Carr, question, or are you prepared to second?
Prepared to second. I was just going to comment that 20 million is mentioned in 5, in the deed, limitation of liability. And also, we can also see that not only our part, our share, there was Horowhenua and Palmerston North, their percentages were way, I think Palmerston North was 66%, just so that we've, and 25% for Horowhenua.
Correct.
So yes, I'd like to second that.
With a baby.
Any other questions? Councillor Baird.
It's an easy one, I promise. Is somewhere else in the document, I mean, it's what we're on the screen here, is the definition of LGFA and CDW mentioned,
Yeah.
so that it's clear.
Yeah, that's why when I said LGFA, I explained it for those online. Go back to the mover, councillor Wilson, you want to speak to that?
We've had the level of discussion so far.
Any other speakers? Vote, those in favour, those against, carried. Recommendation 6, got a few still to go. That council delegates the authority to agree and approve the final versions to the mayor and with the change to those other two.
Happy to move with the copy and paste from the earlier.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Dalgety seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
No.
I'll put this to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 7, that the council approves the execution of the deeds and documents on behalf of the council by, in the case of deeds, the mayor and elected member, in the case of any other document, the mayor and elected member or the chief executive. We make the same cut and paste. We're consistent.
Yes. I believe so.
Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Baird, you moving? Looking for a second to that? And Councillor Field seconding. You wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Any other speakers? I put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 8, the council agrees to enter into the documentation as required for the council to support CDW's entry into any establishment funding arrangements with Central District Waters Transactional Bank. The bank documents. Do you wish to explain that further?
Sure, so through your worship, we have just signed up with BNZ, City Water has from a transactional banking perspective. And what this might mean is in terms of derivatives or financial instruments to fix our interest rates in advance of day one, or to have of the 20 million potentially to have a small, very small portion of it sitting with the bank as an overdraft rather than all of it sitting with LGFA, just to make things a little bit easier from a data flow and payments perspective. That's what that means
Yeah.
effectively.
This gives you flexibility and effect. Looking for a mover. Councillor Beard moving, seconding, Councillor Buckendale. I'll put it straight to a vote unless there's a problem. Those in favour, those against. Okay.
I did have one question there, sorry.
We'll do it.
You've gone to a vote though, I can, if you'd rather.
I've moved quickly. I'll take the question in case it's relevant.
Yeah, just when I was looking at this one, I did, a little question popped up in my mind. With all this transition of all these funds and stuff being put up, what is the, and again, it could be a question, I apologise, Chris, sort of for tomorrow's meeting. Where's the signing authority sitting for all of this? How's that being structured?
Great question. So, one of the actions for the next board meeting is a delegations policy. So, they want to do that to get ahead of, when they get the chief executive on board. So that will be, it's.
Yeah, the board meeting is on the 11th,
Yeah.
and any funding, assuming everything gets approved today, it's gonna take LGFA and our legal team at Simpson Grayson up to the 16th or so of July to get anything operational anyway. So all the delegation needs to be in place before.
Yeah, thank you, happy to accept it.
Okay, Jack. Those in favour? Those against? Carried, thank you very much. Cut and paste within us, this one, recommendation 9. The council delegates the authority to agree and approve the final versions of the bank documents to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor Dave Wilson as an alternate. Councillor Dalgety, looking for somebody to so move. Councillor Okawa, moving. Seconding. Councillor Beard, seconding. Councillor Okawa, do you wish to speak to it?
No, that's
The
fine.
vote, those in favour, those against, carried. Recommendation 10, that council approves the execution of bank documents on behalf of the council by, in the case of, the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Dalgety, and in case of any other documents, etc. Would somebody like to so move? Councillor Buckendale, Councillor Wilson, any questions around this? Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? I do, by the way, see the value in these all being put independently to each other rather than a block position. And I presume the other councils did the same?
Some of them, yeah.
Hurricane did Pumps North did it pretty much was a block of them.
The whole block, the whole lot. Recommendation 11, that
Could you just declare the result of the vote on that one?
I'll do that. Those in favour?
Right.
Those against? Carry. Recommendation 11. That council provide all the shareholder approvals required to approve all actions taken by CDW in connection with the establishment, funding and entry by CDW into the required documents and transactions in relation to the establishment funding. Councillor Dalgety, are you moving? Oh, I saw a hand go up somewhere.
I am moved, but I'm happy to.
You flinched.
You did an option.
I saw a movement somewhere out the corner of my eye. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Bucknell, second. Now that you've been given that role, would you like to speak to that?
I think it's clear, thank you.
Any questions? Put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Just how many more do I have?
17, I think it was.
Only 15.
Oh,
no,
only
stop
15.
exaggerating.
Oh, I thought it was 17.
The council recommendation 12, that council note that the central district's water debt funding of up to 20 million will be in the form of a short-term line of credit from LGFA, which is a recently approved CDW becoming an approved borrower from LGFA and the newly approved transactional bank for Central District Water. This is their business. I'm happy to move. Councillor Wilson seconding. Put it straight to a vote. Those in favour?
No.
Those against carried. Thank you. Recommendation 13. That council note that the independent debt lines will be used to fund the establishment budget of 10.574 million. Sorry?
547.
Sorry.
It's all right, I can use, don't worry, I can use that 30K.
I tried to slide through,
Yeah,
but we had
thanks,
a
mate.
rate increase of 6.4.
And I picked that one up.
It's a team effort.
Approved in the water services delivery plan, which includes 6.3 million for the digital program and any other additional costs that were not anticipated as part of the preparation of the water service delivery plan, which will require the Central District's Water Chief Executive and Board approval and be monitored by the shareholding councils through the shareholders committee. Don't be looking for a second to that. Councillor Baird seconded. You have to speak to it.
No, as it's been.
I'll put it to the vote. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 14, that council note that in addition to the establishment program budget, the independent Central District Water debt line will be used to fund Central District Water operational costs incurred prior to the 1st of July 2027, which is the official setup, which will require the Central District's Water Chief Executive and Board approval and will be monitored by the shareholding committees through the shareholders committee. Would you like to explain the rationale behind that?
So when we talk in the report, the fourth column along, which is effectively the cost of bringing some stuff on early and setting things up earlier, that's effectively what this is referring to.
Yeah. Councillor Wilson,
Happy to move.
looking for a second. Councillor Buckenbell, second. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I think this is actually quite a solid one. If you actually look at really look at what the detail is in here, is the approval of the funding, but monitored via three different sets of eyes viewing in. So I think it gives us as a council a degree of assurity that no one's going rogue on us. Because the key word there is to be monitored by the shareholding councils through the shareholding committee. So I think this is quite a strong one. So I'm happy to support this.
I was going to comment as well. Look, the relationship between the entity board and the shareholders committee is a strong and open one. Now, there are conversations all of the time. They can be robust conversations, but everybody is aligned in terms of direction. I think it's a very good relationship. Whereas for those online, there have been some challenges in some of the other entities being set up at this time around the country. So we're not really seeing that here. Councillor Dalgety, question.
Just a question, so how often is the board meeting currently then at this stage in the organisation?
The board meeting, go back to Australia.
Thank you, good question. So the board officially it has to meet 10 times a year. That was the sort of the minimum set out in the constitution. It's meeting monthly. So at the moment they're sort of varying times because all 6 directors are quite busy. So trying to find consistent dates. But when we're in the swing, they'll meet every, I think it's the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So they're arriving the day before and having some meetings in the evening, and then having full day over the next. And they did it the first time last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. They spent the day before touring some of the facilities around Palmerston North. The next meeting is on the 15th of July, and then on the 14th of July they'll do some tours around Horowhenua. I think that the following month there is a induction with Ngā Tapu Waihau, and then the following month there'll be Anna will be leading them on a road trip around the beautiful Rangitikei.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson and myself, Councillor.
Just also to note that the purpose of all these decisions that we're going through here this morning is to enable the activity largely of the board to ramp up its work schedule and process to start to drive forward. So that's why these are all quite critical decisions to do that, to enable the board to do its function, to keep driving the program forward.
It's that gap through the chair, it's that gap between now and when they can actually start bringing in their own income, which can't happen until after 1 July.
And certainly the board chair has taken the view to the mayors. Here's my phone number. You know, if you see an issue or want a discussion, call me direct. Have a conversation. So it is very open. Put it to the vote in case I get nudged that I haven't done this. Let's vote those in favour, those against. Carried. Recommendation 15. The council note that a portion of the line of credit funding will also be used to ensure that Central District Water has sufficient cash for available funding facilities to meet its financial obligations as they fall due during the establishment phase in the early years of operation. They've got to be able to fund their morning tea, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Definitely not the morning tea, just saying.
I thought I'd be pulled up here.
Yes, I was gonna say. Thank you.
No, I'm happy to move that, looking for a second to Councillor Wilson, second. Any questions, Councillor Wong?
There's no mention of monitoring by shareholders. Do anything on this one? Is it relatively minor or? Does anyone feel the need that they should have had
I think that recommendation 14 would actually cover some of that as well.
Can I maybe just comment on this one? I guess if you look at it, there are, there's 4 elements to the funding that's noted in there. This is the one that's the extra 5 million, which basically there is no intent to use. It's just basically the headroom that's sitting within the, to cover any sort of short-term ups and downs. Certainly no approval to spend it. So
But if we were to, that would fall into the other recommendations. If
yeah.
it was for operational, or was for digital, then it would
Right.
absolutely
Yeah.
have to be monitored through those
Yeah.
processes.
That's what I see it. I'll put it to the vote, those in favour? Those against, carried. Just before we move into public excluded for others, but thank you, Chris. It's been a great relationship and I think staff internally within the 3 councils, not just our own council, but the amount of work that's gone into this process has been substantial. And it's nice that we, I think they're on track.
thank you very much.
Councillors, any other general question rather than specific to that you wish to take the opportunity to ask? No. Well, thank you for coming over.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We'll take a break in a second, but first of all, could somebody move that we go into public excluded for the reasons given? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Rakawa. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll take a break for